Okay, Lady Ada, what is this?
It's a party, and I'll show and tell if I want to here at the show and tell. We do this show and tell every single week at 7:30 p.m. If you're watching it live, that means you know that it's 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. If not, maybe you're watching it recorded. We record these for watching later, but they're most fun live because this is when people from around the world show up and try to show off their projects, whether it be 3D printing or soldering or kits or electronics or whatnot. We would love to see what you're working on. So show up in this hangout. We're here till 7:50-ish, and then we have to go off to the next show. So take a couple minutes.
This is the only 25 minutes that the world comes together and show and shares the things that are popular and make them happy. And
this is it.
This is it. This is where we all come together.
This is it.
All right.
Okay.
So, Scott, what you got cooking this week?
Hi. Talk about around the world. This is my last show and tell in Seattle for a while. Next week, I will be on a plane, and the week after that, I will be in Lyon, France, I think. So we'll see if I can make it. I don't know. I don't even know what time it is there. So we'll figure that out. But what I wanted to show today is a project. Oh, don't tip over the water on the keyboard.
Project love gravity.
Yeah. Project I showed a couple weeks ago. I said KiCad, and here's my PCB, and here's the result. It's my own mechanical keyboard.
Made a keyboard.
It's got 63 keys. It's a little bit smaller. I'm going to plan on taking this with me. It doesn't quite work as a keyboard yet because I haven't written the software for the feather on the back, which is the brains of the whole keyboard. So it's running CircuitPython. And it actually, I did verify all the hardware works. So you can press a key and the REPL will show it. But a work item for me and what I'm going to do shortly so I can use this as a keyboard is add support in CircuitPython. So you can say, like, this key is pressed and that key is pressed. If you're interested in it, I posted a Reddit link, and I'll drop it in the chat here, that has a link to an imager gallery. And I put notes on, like, where to find everything to build one yourself. And the PCB is on my own GitHub under Tannewt. So if you look for the GH60, which is this is based on, you can get that and try it.
Sweet.
Very cool. All right. Well, we hope to see you wherever you are, whenever you are, very soon.
Yeah. I will definitely try to make it to show and tell and show off the latest and greatest.
All right.
Okay.
While I'm on my travels.
Okay. And is the offer still open if someone wants to meet up with you and talk about electronics and more?
Yeah, definitely. I got an offer from somebody in the UK, and we're still kind of figuring that part of our trip out. But I might make it to Reading. Shout out to the person who emailed me there. Also, on CircuitPython contributors in Munich, I might make it there. I don't know. And then if you're in France, Spain, or Germany, drop me an email at scott@adafruit.com. I'll be around those parts for the next 2 months, basically.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Happy trails.
Thank you.
Next up, no Pedro.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday, everybody. So this week's project was pretty simple and easy. So we have that $12 spy camera in the shop that we got a month ago. Was it last year?
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Okay, so we already had a project for it. So, yeah, time does fly. So I built a little. Yes, it has. Lost my train of thought. I built a little enclosure for it for the project since we already had a project to make it into like a time-lapse camera using an Adafruit Trinket. But I added like a little charging circuit, so the Trinket backpack, and it all fits in this tiny little thing. So I did that, and I kind of asked folks in the team if they would use it, and Todd actually thought it would be a good dog cam. What does that mean? So he has two dogs. One's Binko, one's Coda. I believe that is Binko. So he put it on a like a GoPro harness and took a walk. So let's take a look at the walk. Actually, this one's Coda. He's a little bit more.
Coda's yellower.
He's more yellower. So this is in Maine, I believe, right?
Maryland.
Maryland. Sorry, Maryland, Uniontown. And here is Binko's walk. So I think as a dog cam, it's kind of interesting to capture like a time lapse like this. Although the battery did die in like 15 minutes because I don't think you charged it all the way, but it's still, you get a nice little story out of this.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. So it's using the project in a way I never thought it would kind of be used. So that's kind of neat. But that's this week's project. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. And we did 3D Hangouts earlier today.
Yep, we played your video on Ask an Engineer tonight.
Cool.
Really stepped it up with the graphics this week. There's some Easter eggs if folks want to look very closely in the video.
Yes. Okay, the Cowie. Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you. That was
Sweet. Thank you.
All right, JP, what you got going on?
Hey, everybody. So this week I've got my third mystery box project. This is the Crypto Countdown case. Released that on Friday, and I think you guys are playing it tonight. So this, in this I show you a little bit about distressing a Pelican case knockoff, but really the more interesting thing for people is I wanted to do a sort of panel mount project. And so what I have here is a kind of an escape room prop, or it could be a prop for a movie, that kind of thing, that gives you a little display on our 14 segment that does alphanumeric, which is kind of cool. I hadn't worked with that before, and that's a fun little feather wing that I'm using to show the display. And as you can tell, I've got an annoying little piezo buzzer there. And then I've got these switches. And so in the sort of story of an escape room, you'd have people figure out or get clues to do the right switches on here. I'll do the wrong one just to see the little lights light up on our switches there. And that's what happens when you do the wrong thing. You get this rapid countdown, and you're probably going to blow up. I'm going to turn that off. But actually, one of the cool things that people might like about this project is you can't let players turn something like that on and off. And so I was faced with, well, how am I going to get this to be an on switch but not an off switch, or at least under certain conditions? And at first I was looking at our little power switch breakout, which can turn stuff off in software, but I couldn't think of an easy way to have it lock out your ability to turn it off with the manual switch. And so Lamore came up with a pretty cool little transistor circuit that actually enables and disables this switch through a digital pin, then to the enable pin on the feather. And I'll just pop this up. I actually don't have this secured with anything other than a little bit of a friction fit, so you can see what I've got behind the scenes. So there's our little panels and panel switches. I'm using some of our little nylon standoffs, and I've got a feather breakout for the segment display. I've got the feather M0 in there, and then I've got one of the feather terminal breakout shields in there. This is our little panel mount USB, so you can plug in USB to this and reprogram it, or charge it as well, since we've got the charging circuit in there. And so it's kind of cool because I was working on the software for this just from a laptop sitting on the couch, and so it was kind of nice to have this little neat bundle of stuff sitting there all plugged in. And I thought I'd also show, this is an evolution of some of the case stuff. I started out with just hand poking out a little cardboard with like a awl and a knife, and then I laser cut cardboard to settle in on the layout a little bit more, and then tried some different acrylic materials, and then started actually using some plywood at one point just because it cuts quicker and isn't as stinky, and started doing some little etching inside of here to do graphics. And one thing I find with these panel mount switches is that they, especially on something like acrylic, which doesn't compress at all and it's really slick, the toggle switch covers, let me grab one of those on its own for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. So these little covers, they basically have a couple of, really tightly put on their nut on there. They have a nut that threads onto the shaft of this, and then our little doomsday switch sits on top of that, and it has a little notch that slots into a groove on the threading so it doesn't move too much, but I want it to be locked in really well. So what I ended up doing was a separate etching pass with the laser on a rectangle that I'd measured pretty precisely to that shape, and I etched it with a slow enough speed and high enough power that I dropped it down about 0.5 millimeter, and so that was enough for the these to sit in there really nicely and they don't go anywhere.
That locks in the switch as well. It kind of does dual duty, and you can tell they're like lined up perfectly. They're like,
yeah, they won't move. They're lined up perfectly. I actually brought this for a critique and testing with a friend of mine, Joe. I brought it to the coffee shop we meet at on Friday mornings, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking to open this up in a cafe, but no one even noticed. Everyone's just Hollywood people talking about their next show or whatever. But one of Joe's first comments, I had this wooden one actually at the time, and one of his first comments was, "Oh wow, you got to get those things to not wiggle. Like that's how much play they have."
Oh yeah.
If you don't either glue them down, you could use different techniques. Tighten the screw down really tight on this because it's wood; it might stay put. But
yeah,
I decided to really try to perfect that with cutting those grooves in there.
That's kind of cool. It's actually nice that you have someone who's willing to critique and point out things like that, because that's stuff that if you don't think about, you wouldn't even notice. So the fact that they noticed, oh, this wiggles, you know, it's the thing that pushes your skill.
Yeah, for sure.
Quality of your work is having someone who can find those things.
Tricks of the trade.
Yeah, a little like they're like, they're right, because that is something that makes it feel cheaper. Yeah,
it's great. It's actually, I think that's a really good point. And also there's just how much am I explaining this to someone before they do it? And that's all of a sudden the stuff that I know I need to fix. Like if I'm saying, oh, but you'll need to wait a moment before you hit a switch, then you're like, okay, I gotta change something so they don't have to do that. Like even just explaining it and watching them use it for the first time, you end up with 5 or 6 top things to go and fix before you're done with your first real version.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah. It's valuable.
Thank you so much, AP.
All right, well, thanks guys.
We'll be playing a video tonight on Ask an Engineer.
Nice.
All right, Frank. Hey Frank, how's it going?
Let me unmute. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
You sound great.
All right. Hey, first time on for me. So I had a little projects. We have a little Alzheimer's in the family, and there was an article by a Dr. Tsai from MIT where she did some experiments on mice and drilled little holes in their skull and exposed them to light using what do they call light stimulation therapy or something like that, but they can stimulate the neurons. And she noticed that the pre-Alzheimer's mice didn't have a 40 hertz gamma frequency in their brain. It was distorted. It wasn't running at 40 hertz like they were. So she used these little fiber optic cables and stuck them in the brain and stimulated areas to 40 hertz for an hour a day, and it showed signs of reversing the Alzheimer's. So that's a little bit invasive, I think. So
yeah, it'd be really cool if you then. Okay, so I got my laser cutter.
That's a tough sell to get it to pass the FDA.
Serious laser envy with John's project there. So yeah, maybe that's the next step. But right now, she had done a kind of a Hail Mary. She just said, all right, what if we flash lights in the mice's eyes? So she put up a strip of LEDs, flashed it at 40 hertz, and apparently saw the same effects in the rear of the brain, the visual cortex. So not waiting 5 more years for all these clinical trials to come out, we're going to try a little therapy on a family member. And so I had to build something real quick. So what I used is a feather. Let me grab this so you can see. I call it the Alts light. So it's kind of doing the opposite of the alt-right. Instead of causing brain damage, the idea is to reverse it. And so we've got basically just 1.5 inch PVC. I made up a stand, and I have a feather here that I've hooked to some of your favorite little MOSFETs. I know you're a big fan of MOSFETs, Lady Ada.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see that here.
Yeah.
But,
little power wing.
Yeah. So what I did is I just used a breadboard and built a little power wing, like you call it, and then I ran each of the colors of the strip, so white, RBG, all in parallel, and then ran it to 3 separate strips that I've got wired up there. And then I also ran over here to your music maker board. Seeing as it has to be an hour a day, I thought that would be a little long to sit there in just a flashing light. So we have a voice talking to the patient. So let me plug this in.
Hi, Daddy.
And then all he has to do is press this button here.
Welcome to the Alts Light System, prepared for you by Frank and Mary.
Wow.
So enjoy. 15 minutes remaining. 15 minutes remaining.
Then you just add 15 minutes at a time.
Minutes remaining. 44 minutes remaining. 59 minutes remaining.
And then it just sits here and flashes and lights up the room. So the idea is to use it in a dark room that would just be lit by this, so you can read or do whatever, as long as you don't have like a 30 hertz monitor or something like that, you know. So no TV. And we'll see how it works. But it counts down every 5 minutes. It says the time remaining, and then when it gets to the end, it counts down the last minute in 10-second intervals, and then reminds them to unplug it when it's all done, after a little message, nice greeting. So I was worried that leaving it plugged in, I'm using a 5 amp 12 volt supply I had laying around, and your switch to kill the power to the 12 volt line. I was worried if something there didn't work and I wasn't around and those FETs started to creep on, they could get really hot and maybe start on fire or whatever. I figured since this is on the other side of the country from me, I would just feel better if he unplugged it. But otherwise, it does shut the power off and turn it on using a GPIO from the Feather. So the Feather was more than capable, and the Music Maker did a great job. It was really easy to work with. I put everything on GitHub, including I 3D printed these little pieces here for holding the LEDs.
Wow.
If you can see those or not. So, and then that mounted the speakers from Adafruit, and a switch I had laying around and I sampled in the 1990s. I had a couple of them. So we're building a second one for here so we can maybe do a little preventative maintenance on our brains.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, the type of research that you're talking about, there's the Alzheimer's research, and then there's the biohackers who just want to upclock and also just have more performance on their current bio hardware. So that's really interesting. Excellent work. I'll send you a sticker, of course. Thanks so much. Can you put a link to that in the chat or wherever you can for the GitHub?
Sure, I will, because I put the schematics up there and everything, so people can build it.
It's futuristic. Woo.
Sweet.
All right, thank you so much.
And by the way, she found no effects going outside of 40 hertz. So I don't know if you're trying to like maybe to kick it up to 50 hertz or something. I don't know. Maybe Lady Ada, your brain's probably already running 50 hertz.
She's overclocked.
Overclocking.
Right.
So anyway. All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yay! Thanks for coming by.
All right. Next up. Hey, Dan, how's it going? Unmute your mic and show us your project. How you doing?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
What you got going on?
Great. Wow, that was a great project. Hard act to follow. So, but I'm Dan. I've been working on a little mini robot project for the past couple months. And unfortunately not really ready to show off yet, but I wanted to talk tonight a little bit about a side quest I've been on along the way, which is learning CNC milling on a little other mill that I have access to, which I know Lady Ada uses those for printed circuit boards mostly, but you know they really do a pretty good job with small wood pieces as well. And I haven't worked with wood much, and I think a lot of us, you know, like to work in plastics and metals, and I really think wood is a great material. There's so many different kind of varieties of it, and so many different things you can do with it, and really make it look classy. So I thought I'd show off some wood parts that I'm working on, and talk about just kind of brain dump some advice on some things that I've kind of learned the hard way about milling small wood parts, so that you guys can learn the easy way. Anyway, first thing is know your machine. So the other mill, like I said, is a great tool. It costs about $3,000, whereas you can kind of do it yourself with parts from eBay for about $800. But if you have the means, like the other mill is like an out-of-the-box solution and just works when you turn it on, and it's self-enclosed. So highly recommended. The one thing about small mills like that is the spindle is not really meant to make deep plunge cuts into the wood like some big CNC machines are. So keep it to 1.25 millimeters max on your pass depth, maybe a little bit more if you're really pushing it. But that's super crucial so you don't, you know, dull your bits or break them. Second up is know your woods. So I have a few different kinds of wood here. And luckily, the two woods that are easiest and cheapest to find are also kind of two of the woods that are easiest to mill, to work with. And that's pine and basswood. So this is pine and this is basswood. Both of them very cheap, very kind of soft, but not too soft. So pine you'll find at any hardware store, Home Depot, for like $2 for a sheet of this stuff. And really very easy to work with. Basswood you'll find in art shops and hobby shops because people like to carve with it. So in both cases, super easy to work with. One thing I like about basswood that you don't really get with pine, although you can, is on your prototypes, if you make mistakes, you can take a hobby knife to the basswood and just kind of modify it yourself, which makes prototyping a little bit easier. Don't go with balsa. I would really not recommend balsa on a CNC mill because it's just too soft and mushy, and you're not going to get precision. You may see at your hardware store oak, which sounds nice and classy, but I would kind of avoid oak at first because it has kind of big open pores. And a lot of people like to work with MDF, which is medium density fiberboard, and it mills super, super easily, but I just think it looks chintzy. I think it looks like cheap IKEA furniture, and you know, for a little bit of extra work, you can get some really nice, you know, grain in your wood, which I think I really appreciate. What else? So yeah, if you get tired, you know, basswood and pine are great, but you know, they're not the most interesting looking woods in the world. Pine has a little bit more grain, basswood almost none. So you can order woods online. So one that I really like to work with is walnut. So this is walnut without oil, and with oil, you can see oil kind of makes it, gives it a really nice dark color. And walnut's very easy to work with, although it kind of also has reasonably big pores, which kind of complicates things a little bit. I just was working with cherry, and I think cherry is my absolute favorite. It's hard, easy to mill, closed pores, beautiful, and the longer it stays in the sun, the better looking it is. Do your research on your woods, because if I had done my research, I would have known that this padauk wood, which is like an African exotic wood, which is gorgeous orange color, does the opposite and is going to turn brown eventually and kind of regular old boring wood looking in the sun. So plus when you're milling it, the dust is not fun to breathe in. So do your research and wear a respirator if you're dealing with woods that are not good to breathe. Also, yeah, if you can find scrap wood, that's great and very cheap and easy, but use like a planer or find somebody with either a power planer or a hand planer so you can get it really flat before you stick it in your mill. It's going to make your life a million times easier. Next up, I was going to talk a little bit about cutting tools. So this is a pretty standard, what they call spiral, 2-flute spiral upcut bit, like the one that comes with the other mill, and this is pretty standard. 2 flutes because of the 2 little things it's got running up it, and spiral for obvious reasons, although it seems kind of helical to me. And upcut because when it cuts through the wood, it brings it up. It moves the chips up like a little conveyor belt on those flutes. And that's works really well for keeping your machine clear of chips, but on wood, you kind of get this like really frayed edge because it pulls the grain up and really messes up your edge. So you can kind of deal with this with like sandpaper or razor blade, but if you really want to make it look nice, what you do is you get this, which is a downcut bit, which cuts the opposite way, right? Opposite spiral. And what that's going to do is like, instead of fraying it upwards, it's going to push that grain down. And here's a little video of a downcut bit cleaning up that frayed mess, just with like, just straight out of the box, like perfectly clean edges instead of having to sand off all that frayed mess. So the fraying is going to be different for different woods. So some woods it's not even a problem, but on harder woods, that fraying will actually turn into splintering and really ruin all your edges. So try to avoid that. Downcut bits are awesome. If you do use a downcut bit, I recommend that you also use this, which is a bit fan, which you can get the plans for on the other mill website. And that because the downcut bit doesn't clear out the chips as well, a bit fan really helps kind of blow it all away. And that leads me into my next point, which is I love the fact that with a mill, you can make your own tools. So the bit fan is a great example. I also made these little tiny sanding blocks, so you can wrap them in sandpaper. And I had a scrap lying around, but I recommend this, like this 3M. I lost track of it. There's this kind of clear rubbery 3M sandpaper that allows you to wrap it into small corners very easily, and then you can use like this sanding block to sand a flat edge in these kind of inside corners. So that's a great tool. It's easy on the mill. Another one is these, which are called finishing pyramids. And this allows you to like then paint or oil one of these and then rest it on these pyramids. And you can paint both sides and then it'll dry without kind of screwing up your finish. So also easy to make on the mill. Yeah. And then also I like to make a lot of these test articles for things that I know are going to be fiddly and I don't want to ruin an entirely nicely milled part. So I'm going to be gluing on a nut onto this little column. And so I wanted to test it with several glue. So, you know, instead of wasting an hour and a half and up my gluing, I make 4 of these little columns and try it all out ahead of time. So, yeah, so all of those are great. I think that's about all I have. Oh, and fittingly on the other side of my paper, I have my last bit of advice, which is learn how to mill both sides, right? Flip it, you mill one side, flip it around and mill it the other side. And if you really want to get it precise, use something like this. This is probably overkill, but anything that's like really flat surface, you know, and square surface, you can put in your milling bed. And then when you flip it over, you know, you say leave 3 millimeters extra or whatever, so you know how much to cut off, and then you square that up right in your milling bed, and so that it's nice and precise when you mill the other side. So truing blocks, exactly. These are called 1, 2, 3 blocks. You can get them on Amazon for like $15. So yeah, that's about all I have. And also last note is make notes. And on some of these, I have notes right on the thing, right? Like, so I'm trying to fit a Raspberry Pi Zero in here.
Yeah.
And when stuff doesn't fit, it's like, oh, well, instead of trying to like write down 3 millimeters from this side, 3 millimeters from that side, you know, just write directly on there, and then you can bring it into the shop next time. And also give them numbers so you remember like which piece is which. So all of that, I had a lot of confusion with a lot of pieces, so learned that the hard way. So anyway, that's about all I got, but thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Dan. Email support@adafruit.com and we'll send you out a show and tell sticker. And if you're up for it, email pt@adafruit.com. That's my email address. If you're up for it, this video seems like it should be a learning guide on the Adafruit learning system. Like if you're a modern maker and you're doing stuff with 3D printing or you have mills or whatever, but you know, wood has been around and now you have all these new tools that you can use with it. If you're up for it, we'd love to work something out so maybe you could get some of this information in a spot where makers could see it.
Yeah, I'd love to. I was actually going to talk about kind of finishing wood as well. There's, you know, different products you can use for that, and obviously short on time. So yeah, we can do that another time.
Well, no matter what, come back for that. But I'm going to send this time encoded URL to people who say, "Oh, what about wood?" So now I have something.
What about wood?
But this could be an interesting learning guide for folks.
I think so.
So email support for a sticker. Email me, and I can hook you up with some learning guide access.
We'll do.
Okay. All right, Roberto, and then C. Scott. If you can keep it to a minute each, we can get both of you in. Go, go, go.
All right, can you hear me well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to quickly show 2 things. One of them is something I made, and the other one is something I acquired to make things, both of which were inspired by Noah and Pedro. So the first one is some fidget spinners I made, and so. Oh no, I'm not ready. You have to select the tab. Sorry, I wasn't ready. Okay, so the first one is a heart.
Oh,
it spins
yay.
like the other ones. The second one is Fidget from Time Bandits. If you're aware of Kenny Baker, he played R2-D2 and a couple of other characters from Star Wars. But my favorite role was Fidget in Time Bandits.
Cool.
I put your logo as well. There's Pac-Man. These are all created in NetBeans using OpenSCAD as a programming language. Here's a Rebel icon. The 4 has clovers on it.
This is perfect for you because you had that automatic like generator. You can just Batman's totally got a fidget spinner. Totally.
5 is Batman. Another 5 is my favorite hometown logo for the basketball team.
Yeah.
Them. And then 6 spinner is the OSH logo. I'm trying to go as quick as I can.
Every day.
Yeah, I'm trying to go as quick as I can.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
So,
thank you so much, Roberto. Email support@adafruit.com. You can put a sticker on one of those fidgety things and fidget with the sticker.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, C. Scott, play us out. You got a minute.
Hey, guys, I'll be really, really quick here. I now have 3 phase shifters in the system. I was A/B testing. The one with the blue knobs here is tuned differently than the one here, the tuning capacitors. This one is all the poles are equally spread. These have a more of an exponential spread, and I was A/B testing it. I'll show you more of that next week since we're moving on. I'm going to be sending this thing, if I can put it right side up to you guys to have a try. This is my first prototype of the Croviex. My production models right here, but they work mostly the same. If there's any eccentricities in it, I'll write them down when I send it out. But the thing I wanted to mention here is my daughter this weekend is attending the GEMS Club event in her area, and GEMS is the Girls Excelling in Math and Science program. Let me see if I can post the URL here to it. Hopefully it copied it.
If you remember, when we have the Gemma CMD Circuit Python, they should use the Gemma for GEMS.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll give you a report on that when she's back from that. But
okay.
I was wanting to have her come in here to talk about it, but she was too shy. So maybe I can get her on here next week.
Totally.
So, anyway,
family.
that's it for me. I know you guys got to get rolling.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, C. Scott. Thank you so much, Jim,
Dan, Frank,
John,
Pedro,
Noah, Roberta, Scott. Thank you so much, everybody. We're here every single Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for making this the most fun and the best half an hour
most flashing
of our week. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Most mystery box.
So I'm asking engineer in like a minute.
Okay, gotta go.